I came back in a very unusual time. The year that I came to Rock Island High School was 1972.
Okay.
And that's the year of what we call the Rock Island riots. So there was a lot of change and a little bit of undercurrent of not so much, well, it was turmoil as far as race relations and things like that. I think the community has, one, survived it, and number two, they have, I think, have put together just some mechanisms of coping with the type of things that happened in the 70s. But we, the community has had to grow and understand the relationship of, the African American community here in the Quad Cities. I look at the Mississippi from historical context too as well, and I've been going to South Carolina a lot with my quilting exhibits, and that is one of the things that was highlighted at a workshop that I went to, how slaves came in. And so that was the whole thing, that the Mississippi River, and I was researching, has been a friend and has been, the enemy of African Americans. It brought you into slavery because that's how slaves got distributed in different places along the Mississippi. And then it was an escape route too as well. So yeah, it served a dual purpose, and you can't blame the river because the river does what the river does. In 2019, I had a studio downtown in Davenport at Bucktown Center for the Arts, and that is when the river jumped its barriers. I guess those Haskell barriers broke, or they weren't tall enough. The whatever it was, we became flooded out, and that's when I could feel and understood the impact of just, water and the Mississippi River, and how closely, we kind of lived to it. That left us displaced for a long time. Because we were a not-for-profit, there was not a lot that FEMA could do for us. And I looked at just regular people that have to come in. I mean, downtown in Davenport, there were renters, so you don't have as many homeowners. But if you think about people who live by the river, who are impacted by the river with floods and disasters like that, it's just kind of, it just makes you, take a step back, because water can do so much damage. And we were out of our space for maybe 3 or 4 months after the river actually receded. The whole basement was flooded. Our building, the basement has the entire footprint of the whole building. So that was a lot of water. And they said, well, we can't just, pump it out. You have to pump it out slowly so the walls won't collapse. I didn't know that either. I mean, there was just so many steps, and what FEMA did do was, come by and give everybody buckets and, and bleach and gloves and N95 masks and things like that. So when we were able to go back in, we would be able to clean up. I went to high school with Ellis Kell. And so I know, and Ellis was really a real nice guy. And when we started Azembuike, and it was still called the River Music Experience, and we would always talk to Ellis and Jonathan. I took him down to introduce him to Ellis, and just trying to find music for the films, for the student films. And he would talk to us about, river music. I'm thinking, well, what is river music? And just that whole concept, or that whole era where music came up and down the Mississippi on the riverboats. And, the different musicians and black musicians that played on these boats. we're just traveling that way. So yeah, that would be my memories of music. I've only experienced music that one time with the Alphas when they had that dinner, but they had a band. If we have to drink from this water, if you have people water skiing, they fall off those skis. You gotta swim in that water. You're boating. I see people fishing. The water is providing a certain stability for our lives. And I just think it needs to be appreciated. And the kids that I get that come into the art class and stuff like that, there's not a real concept of water and of rivers and waterways or anything. I mean, they might learn something about it in school, but that concept of how we're connected. And I know there's a lot of information on Native Americans and always, being the bearers of water and saying water is life. But I look back, and in Africa, that is a concept too, an ancient concept that people realize that water is life. And when I travel like to the Caribbean and things like that, the connection that young Black people or Black people have with the water is totally different than what we have. Everybody swims, everybody fishes, people have boats and things like that. And here you don't have that major connection. So I'm hoping that projects like this will reconnect our young people to at least have an appreciation and to understand that if there's no water, you really are not going to live that long off a soda pop. So I'm not even sure they can make it without water.